Hi there, it's Mrs F with my video on the early development of the Nazi Party. Although I'm following the Edexcel specification, you'll find that a lot of the content is also relevant to other exam boards. In my last lesson, I looked at the changes in German society between 1924 and 1929, which brought to an end my lessons on topic 1, the Weimar Republic between 1918 and 29. So in today's lesson, we start looking at Hitler's rise to power, starting with the early development of the Nazi Party. And in this lesson, we'll focus on both Hitler's early career and the early growth and features of the Nazi Party. At the end of the First World War, Corporal Adolf Hitler was in a hospital in Munich, recovering from gas poisoning. He is said to have been absolutely devastated when he heard news of Germany's defeat. When he was fit enough, the army gave him a new job as a spy in the Munich area, keeping an eye on local political activists. And as part of this work, Hitler began to attend the meetings of the German Workers' Party, or the DAP. The DAP had been founded in February 1919 by Anton Drexler, who was a railway mechanic. It was a tiny political party. At the first meeting Hitler attended, on the 12th of September 1919, there were only 23 people. Even so, Hitler was attracted by the party's ideas, and on the 19th of September 1919, he decided to join the DAP. Within just 2 years, he had taken control of the party away from Drexler and reshaped it into the Nazi Party. There were 5 key parts to Hitler's takeover of the German Workers' Party. First of all, his influence on the party's policy. Secondly, his own personal appeal. Thirdly, his changes to the party organisation, his changes to the party leadership, and then the role of the SA. So we'll start off by looking at party policy. We might describe the DAP as a party of protest. It was strongly opposed, first of all, to the Weimar politicians, who they blamed for getting rid of the Kaiser, making a disastrous peace, and accepting the hated Versailles Treaty. They were also against democracy. They thought it was a weak form of government. And they also hated the Jews, who they basically used as a scapegoat for Germany's defeat and the economic turmoil which had followed. Now, where Hitler made his mark is in helping to write the DAP's 25-point programme. This was basically a document explaining the key policies of the DAP, and it contained both nationalist and socialist policies. So nationalist policies emphasise things like race, expanding German territory, building up the army, and gaining power over other European countries. Then there were the socialist policies. These stressed having greater government control over living conditions and the economy to try and help the workers. Now, to begin with, public support for the DAP was actually dependent on this popular support for nationalism and socialism. But it quickly became clear that Hitler's personal appeal as an orator, which is a public speaker, was also vital in attracting support. He rehearsed his speeches very carefully. They would usually start off quietly and slowly, building up the tension towards an impassioned, almost frenzied rant. Now, these speeches probably seem quite strange to us today, but they were actually very persuasive. And his gestures were another key part of his appeal. To begin with, he would lean forward and fix his eyes on his audience to draw them in. And then towards the end of his speeches, his hands would wave vigorously in the air. He also had publicity photos and paintings produced which showed him as an orator, And you can see that in this painting by Hermann Hoyer, which was exhibited in 1937. It shows Hitler addressing a party meeting in 1921. At the 46 party gatherings between November 1919 and November 1920, Hitler appeared on 31 occasions as the star speaker. And as Hitler's appeal spread, membership of the DAP grew to 1,000 by June 1920 and 3,000 by the end of 1920. So by 1920, Hitler was Drexler's right-hand man in the DAP. And as the party's leader of propaganda, Hitler made his personal mark by introducing a number of changes. In January 1920, the DAP set up a permanent office in Munich with somebody called Rudolf Schussler as the party's first full-time administrator. This meant that the party's meetings were more organised and better advertised, so that party membership and funds began to increase. Next, Hitler suggested a new name for the party. As we know, the two main pillars of the 25-point programme were nationalism and socialism. So Hitler suggested that the party should be called the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the NSDAP, or Nazis for short. The three parts of the name, National, Socialist and Workers, helped to make clear the party's policies and helped to gain support. Hitler deliberately named the party so it appealed to as many different people as possible. Soon after, the Nazis adopted their characteristic logo, the swastika, and its straight-armed party salute. What this meant was that the party stood out from all the other small nationalist parties which existed in Germany at that time. Then, in December 1920, there was enough money being brought in for the Nazis to buy their own newspaper. Its initial circulation was 11,000 copies, but within a year it had reached 17,000 copies. What this meant is that the voice of the Nazis could be more widely heard, not just in Munich, but across Bavaria and even other parts of Germany. By July 1921, Hitler felt so assured of his position that he forced a leadership contest in the party. Drexler was defeated and Hitler became leader of the NSDAP. To further consolidate his position, he surrounded himself with key supporters to help lead the party, and they were very carefully selected for their skills and for the image that they would bring to the party. These included Rudolf Hess. He was a wealthy academic who became Hitler's deputy. Then there was Hermann Goering, who had been a young, dashing and wealthy First World War fighter pilot. We have Julius Streicher, who was a publisher who founded another Nazi newspaper, the rabidly anti-Semitic Der Stürmer. And finally, we have Ernst Röhm, who was a scar-faced, bull-necked ex-army officer who was very popular among ex-soldiers like the Freikorps, who we've heard about before. Hitler also made powerful friends for the party, such as the General Ludendorff, who had been leader of the German army during the First World War, and we'll hear more about him in the lessons which are coming up next time. The SA, or Stormtroopers, were formed in August 1921, just a month after Hitler took control. They were basically a private army, recruited from the unemployed. They were often ex-soldiers, demobilised from the army, and they dressed in brown uniforms, leading to their nickname, the Brown Shirts. Now, when the SA paraded in the streets as a show of force, they helped to impress people with their sense of power and organisation. They helped to strengthen the Nazi Party by controlling the crowds at their own meetings and also by going round and beating up opponents when they were having their meetings. The SA also strengthened Hitler. Although it was Ernst Röhm who was put in charge of the SA, they were expected to be completely obedient to Hitler. Hitler selected trusted members of the SA to be his own personal bodyguard. Hitler controlled the Nazi Party like he was a military leader. By the end of the Party Congress of January 1922, Hitler's control of the Nazi Party was complete. He managed to persuade the membership to give up their right to elect their leader. He did this by promising that in return, his personal control would better enable the party to bring down the Weimar Republic. There was absolutely no discussion of policy at the Congress. Hitler dictated policy in a speech that went on for 2.5 hours. So now that we've looked at the early development of the Nazi Party, we'll move on next lesson to have a look at the reasons for, the key events and the consequences of the Munich Putsch. So I'll see you then. Goodbye.